Hi guys. So you are watching this video because you missed our live lesson today. That is okay because this is our first time, so maybe you missed it. But in the future, you all are required to come, and to make up missing that lesson, you need to watch this video. I understand that it is long, but that's what happens when you miss class. So please watch this video to make sure that we all are on the same page. So right now we are working on reading about this book called A Map into the World, which you guys either read yesterday or watched the video of a person reading it. So this book, we're working on it this whole week, and we'll talk more about it today. So our agenda for the day is we are doing a greeting and a check-in. 2, read the book A Map into the World again for a second time. 3, we're talking about the book. 4, we are doing a mini lesson on complete sentences. And then 5, you are having work time to write. The goal for today is I can write about what it means to be a neighbor using complete sentences. So by the end of our time today, you need to show me that you can do that by completing our assignment. So our greeting for today was, would you rather create a new sport or a new holiday? So since you missed talking about it with your classmates, just think about which one you would rather do and why. This is a check-in that we did today. So these gifts are from Avatar: The Last Airbender, the show or the movie, or from the show Legend of Korra, if you are familiar with that. So think about which each of these has a number. So which number are you today? Me? I'm kind of feeling like Appa, who says #dead for number 6. Well, when he falls over, tired. That's kind of how I feel. How do you guys feel today? However you feel is a-okay. Okay. So we are going to read A Map into the World by Kalia Yang for a second time. Today, as we read, I want you to see if you can focus on and find any new details that you didn't notice the first time you read it. Think about Pantao and her neighbor Bob. Then also see if you can figure out what Pantao did for Bob. So we're going to read. I'm going to look at my actual book because I'm old and my eyes are bad and I cannot see the small little font. So here's our cover, our title page, A Map into the World by Kalia Yang, illustrated by Seo Kim. The first time we saw the swing and the slide in the garden of the greenhouse with the big windows, my mother sat down in a chair in the backyard and said she did not want to get up. Tai-Tai and I looked at the garden, and she pointed out tomatoes, green beans, and a watermelon as round as my mother's belly. Tai-Tai knelt down to touch the dirt. I asked my mother if I could try the swing. She said, "Yes, Pantao." The greenhouse became our house. I helped Tai-Tai hang up the special story cloth about how the Hmong got to America on the empty wall by the big window of the living room. We saw an old man and woman through the window. They waved. We waved back. Later, my mother and father brought me across the street. The old man's name was Bob. The old woman's name was Ruth. Up close, I could see that they were older than Tai-Tai. Tai-Tai and I were in the garden picking tomatoes and beans and checking on the watermelon when my parents brought my baby brothers home from the hospital. I ran to the gate. The boys were smaller than my baby dolls, but cuter than any doll, with their fuzzy heads and red lips and round brown eyes. Some days the babies cried very loud. I covered my ears with my hands and asked my father to take me outside. Bob, and Ruth sat on their special bench. We waved back and forth. The leaves of the two ginkgo trees by Bob and Ruth's house turned yellow like apricots. One day, a brisk wind blew and the fan-shaped leaves came flying down. They covered the grass and the street and the dark mouth of the drain. Bob raked while Ruth sat and watched. I brought in a leaf for the babies to touch, but my mother said, "There's still too little, Punthal." The snow made the world quiet around us. We stopped seeing Bob and Ruth outside. The snowflakes fell on their driveways and glittered in the gray light. I made a ball of snow for my brothers, but it melted before we woke up from their nap. At night, I looked out at our big window at Bob and Ruth's house to see their lights shining across the dark street. Sometimes I saw a shape of a person looking back at me. I waved, but the shadow person never waved back. On a cold morning, cars came to our block, filling the street. Car doors slammed as men and women in thick jackets walked quickly to Bob and Ruth's house. My father said, "Ruth has died. Her family is coming to say goodbye." I felt sad for Ruth. My brothers just played with their toys above them. The cars kept coming and going, the next day and the next. I swayed back and forth on my toes by the big window. I tried to lift one of my brothers so people could see how cute he was. But he cried, and my mother said, "You're still too little to carry him, Punthal." After the Hmong New Year, my baby brothers learned how to sit on their own, and we all sat looking out at the window together. I clapped for them when a plane flew across the high skies. They laughed every time. The house across the street looked empty. The ginkgo trees reached for the sky with their thin fingers. When the snow started melting, I could not wait to return to the swing and the slide in the garden. My baby brothers crawled all over the floor, underneath the table and the chairs. They were like puppies, their tongues licking everything. I found the first worm of spring on the sidewalk and named her Annette. I wanted to bring her inside so my brothers could watch her wiggle, but my mother said, "I don't think so, Punthal." The world became green again, and finally we all went outside. Tai planted green onions, and I picked flowers from the lilac bushes for my brothers to smell. They opened their mouths and tried to eat them. My mother said, "Don't let them eat the flowers, Punthal." We took the babies outside again the next day after lunch. Bob's garage door opened, and we all watched as he pushed out his special bench. He sat down alone. I pulled on my mother's sleeve until she looked at me. I whispered an idea in her ear. My mother and I crossed the street and walked over to Bob. I let the sidewalk chalk bucket swing in my hands. I asked my mother to ask Bob if I could draw on his driveway. I said, "If he doesn't like it, the rain will come and wash it away." Bob nodded and said, "Go ahead." My mother and Bob talked in low voices. I could hear Bob say, "Ruth, she was with me for 60 years. I started my picture with a teardrop. I then made it splatter like sunshine. I drew lines leading away from the sun and splattered sun in many directions. I drew a line that led to the garden. There I put a yellow ginkgo leaf. I then drew a line that led to the grass. There I made the sparkling snow. I drew a line to the sidewalk. There I put a smiling worm named Annette. I drew an arrow to our house. There I added lilac flowers. And then I drew a line, the biggest line of all, around the street, toward the street, and there I drew the whole world. When I was done, I walked quietly to my mother and to Bob. They stopped talking. Bob shook my hand. "What did you draw for me?" he asked. I said in a whisper, "A map into the world, just in case you need it." Bob said, "I think I might." The end. That's the end of the book. So before we move on, something I guys thought would be cool for you guys to know is that this is based off of a real story. So here in the picture, this is the author, Kalia Yang, and she's sitting here with Bob, her neighbor. So in the story, she's talking. The main character is her daughter, and their neighbor is Bob. So here's Bob, here's Kalia Yang, and here is the editor of the book, the person who checks it to make sure it makes sense. And they are all sitting on the special bench that he pulls out every day. And then here are the kids sitting on it. So these two boys on this edges here are the editor's kids. But then Kalia's, this is her oldest daughter, then one of the younger brothers from the story. And then when Kalia Yang first released the book, it was a special event at the Children's Museum in downtown, if you've ever been there. And Bob was able to come, and when she was done reading the book, people asked Bob if they could take their picture with him. So here is at the event when Bob was taking pictures with the different people, which I thought was cool. So now we're going to talk about the book. So unfortunately, you don't get to hear as much about what other people said because you're not at the live class. But we can still talk. I can talk to you as a little bit about what we talked about in class. So our first question that we brought up was, what do you think this book is about? I want you guys to think about that for 1 second. What do you think the book is about? Some things your classmates shared is that the book is about neighbors, or the book's about a little girl who draws a picture for her neighbor, or the book is about a little girl and kind of what she does day to day and going through the different seasons of summer, fall, spring, and winter. Number 2, can you make any connections to this book? Is there anything that in this book that's the same with you? Maybe you're a Hmong and you also hang up a story cloth on your wall like she does in the beginning of the book. Like this. A connection that I have is that when I was younger, my family became really good friends with the neighbors that lived next door. And even though they weren't as old as Bob, they were so older than me and they were my parents' age. And they were good friends and we would hang out with them. And we still do. What are some connections that you have? What do you have that's the same? Do you have younger brothers? Do you draw in chalk? Do you like to be outside? Do you have a garden? What's the same that you have with the book? Number 3, who is Pantao's neighbor? I hope you guys all know that their neighbor is Bob and Ruth. But remember, Ruth did die, which is sad. So number 4, what did Pantao do for her neighbor? Well, what she did is she drew on the sidewalk, right? So in the story, she said that she drew the ginkgo leaf and the snow and the grass and the worm named Annette, right? And an arrow to get to their house, and tomatoes in their garden. And in the end, it looked like this, right? So it was all the things in Bob's life that Bob needed to know, right? She drew him a map of the things in his life that he needed to know that were important to him and where to go. So number 5, what do you think it means to be a neighbor? Is being a neighbor just living close to someone? Can a neighbor be a friend? How can you be a good neighbor? Is it important to be a good neighbor? I want you guys to think about this, and you'll use this thinking in our assignment for today. So now we are going to talk about what is a complete sentence. So a complete sentence needs 2 different things to make it a complete sentence. It needs a subject, so that would be the who or the what that we're talking about. So when you're trying to figure out what's the subject, ask yourself, who or what are we talking about? And then 2, we need a predicate. So that would be what is the sentence about, or what is it doing? So ask yourself, what is it and what is it doing, right? So, and then when you think of, if you know what a verb is, this would be where the verb is. So we have some examples. So the student watches TV. So who are we talking about? Talking about the student. So the student would be our subject, the who. And then what is the student doing? Student's watching TV. So our predicate, remember, that's what they're doing or what it is about. So what are they doing? They're watching TV. So we know watching TV is our predicate. Our next example is dancing is hard work, but you can't see the work behind my picture. So we know dancing is the subject because that's what we're talking about. What are we talking about? Dancing. The predicate is hard work. And how do we know that? Well, I can ask myself, what is it? What's dancing? Well, dancing is hard work, and that's what we're talking about. So let's look at some more examples to see if we can try to make this make sense. So we're looking at, is this a complete sentence? And I'll give you guys a hint. All of these are complete sentences because they have a subject and a predicate. If it didn't have a subject or it didn't have a predicate, it would not be a complete sentence. So I want you guys to let's think about what these are on the subjects and the predicates so we can know, how do I make a complete sentence? I will never have a quiz for you guys where I'm saying, hey, you need to tell me what's the subject, what's the predicate. No, that is not what I'm saying. And that's not what I want you guys to do. I want you guys to know that you need 2 parts in your sentence to make it complete. So when I say write a complete sentence, you know what I mean. So let's see if we can figure this out. So this first one says, elephants are my favorite animal. So what's the subject? Who or what are we talking about? Well, we're talking about elephants. So elephants are the subject. And then what are elephants? Oh, elephants are my favorite animal. So are my favorite animal would be our predicate. Next sentence. I ordered a package on Amazon. So who are we talking about? We're talking about me. I ordered it, right? And then what did I do? I ordered a package on Amazon. So I ordered a package on Amazon is the predicate, and I is the subject. Next sentence. My Wi-Fi is slow. So my Wi-Fi is the subject. That's who we're talking about, what we're talking about. And then what is my Wi-Fi? Well, it's slow. So is slow is my predicate. Next sentence. Aaron goes to bed at 11 p.m. Who are we talking about? We're talking about Aaron. So that means Aaron is our subject. What is Aaron doing? Well, Aaron goes to bed at 11 p.m. So that's our predicate. Goes to bed at 11 p.m. is the predicate. Our next sentence is Lauren dropped her phone. Lauren is who we're talking about. Lauren's the one that dropped her phone, right? That's who we're talking about. So Lauren is our subject. What did Lauren do? Well, she dropped her phone. Hopefully it didn't break. So dropped her phone is our predicate. That's what we're talking about. That's what she did. Our last sentence is, the leaves are turning colors. So what are we talking about? We're talking about the leaves, right? And what are they doing? What are those leaves doing? They're turning color. So our leaves is our subject, and our turning colors is our predicate. Like I said, I don't want you guys to be perfect at identifying what's what, but I want you guys to know that sentences have two parts that they need to have to be complete. So if I tell you to write a complete sentence, I need you guys to be able to do that. So when we're looking at a complete sentence, it starts with a capital letter. That's something you guys need to do in your writing. It ends in a period, right, the dot. It has both a subject and a predicate, so it has those two parts. And then it has to make sense on its own. If I took one sentence out of your writing or out of my writing or out of anything I ever read, it needs to make sense by itself, right? So you can do this by testing your sentences. Test your sentence. So the test is, you can say, guess what? So pretend your best friend comes up to you and says, guess what? And then say your sentence. So if I were to say, let's pretend my friend came up and said, guess what? And then I said, Lauren dropped her phone. Does that make sense? Lauren dropped her phone? Yeah, that makes sense, right? So if it makes sense, you probably have a complete sentence. If I were to say, guess what? And I said, dropped phone. Dropped the phone. You'd be like, what? What did you say? Who dropped their phone? Right? If it doesn't make sense, or you're like wondering like what happened, then you probably don't have a complete sentence, right? So you need the who or the what, that's your subject, and then you also need the what are they doing or who are they, right? What are they? So both parts, subject and predicate, to have a complete sentence, okay? So now you guys need to show me what you know and what you understand. So to do that, you need to write 3 to 4 complete sentences that means with capital letters and with periods, okay? So you guys need to write about, right here, what does it mean to be a neighbor? How can people be good neighbors? And you need to use examples from the book to explain your thinking. So here's what your worksheet looks like. It's in Schoology. You need to fill this out and complete this. This isn't a graded assignment. This is a graded assignment. So complete this in Notability and make sure you submit it. So you remember you're talking about, this is what you're writing. What does it mean to be a neighbor? How can people be good neighbors? And use the example from the book to explain your thinking. So I have some sentence ideas. You do not need to use these, but if you don't know what to write, these are really good things that can help you. So look at these ideas. Blank is what it means to be a good neighbor. You can be a good neighbor by blank. A neighbor is blank. Pantao was a good neighbor by blank. Notice that these all start with capital letters and end with periods. Once you fill in the blanks, they would have both a subject and a predicate. You can use one of these ideas, you can use all of these ideas, or you can use none of these ideas and write your own ideas. That is, I do not care. You can do whatever works best for you, but you need to write 3 to 4 sentences and answer these questions. So this assignment is worth 4 points. So you guys could earn a 4, a 3, 2, or a 1. So to earn a 4, that means you did an excellent, excellent job. So this is what you'd have to do. Student writes more than 4 sentences. Every sentence is complete with capital letters and periods. The student answers the question and uses multiple examples from the book, and it is clear that the student was thoughtful in their writing. Okay, So that's like going above and beyond, like excellent, excellent. What I'm hoping is that you guys will all earn at least a 3. So a 3, that's what I want for you guys to earn. So a 3 means you did good. Like you did a good job. So a student writes 3 to 4 sentences. Every sentence is complete with capital letters and periods. The student answers the questions and uses one example from the book, A Map into the World. Okay, so if a 2, then maybe you write only 2 sentences, or your sentences aren't complete, you forget some capitals, you forget periods, and you only partially answer the questions, and you don't have, maybe you have one, maybe you don't have an example from the book. And a 1 would be maybe only 1 sentence or no sentences complete with capital letters or periods. You write just kind of random sentences, not talking about the questions or the book. Okay, so now it is time to work on your assignment. So that means go to Schoology, open up the assignment, put that in Notability, write your 3 to 4 sentences, and then turn it in. I hope to see you guys soon. Remember that live lessons are required for you guys to be there. So make sure you're there in the future. And since you are not at our last live lesson, that means you need to watch this whole video. So you should have made it to the end. I know it is long, but that's what happens when you miss class. So I will see you guys soon. I hope you guys have a good rest of your day.